Hi sculpture students. This week we are going to talk about some paper texture techniques and some paper and cardboard attachment techniques. Some optional supplies and materials that you guys will probably need. Something to do attachments with, like tape. I'm not a huge fan of liquid glue, but if this is all you have at home, this will do the job. I prefer glue sticks when you are working with paper on paper. It's just a lot less messy. Liquid glue has a lot of water in it and it can get a little bit intense. I know not very many of you have these, but for thicker cardboard, hot glue guns are really important. And then everyone's favorite, the classic duct tape, if you have that at home. These are all some things, along with scissors, that are going to be helpful for our projects today. So, the first thing that I want you guys, you can pan up, to work on are some paper texture tiles. So I just took a sheet of paper and I put it into quarters. It's a little bit on the thicker side. It's a cardstocky type paper. And what I want you guys to do with these tiles, they need to be at least 3 inches by 3 inches, but ultimately it doesn't really matter how big you make them. If you make them huge, you're just going to have a lot more work to do. Mine are about 4.5 by 6 inches. So I've got 4 of these, and there's a bunch of different things that you can do with paper. You can fold it, you can crumple it, you can tear it, you can cut it, you can curl it. And you don't have to get fancy with this. I literally took from my college alumni magazine, I ripped out some pages. You guys don't have to use other paper that you have. You can take junk mail if you want to. You can take old assignments from your binders if you want to recycle those. But what I want you to do for the texture tiles is play around with different techniques using paper, and then you're going to fill up the whole tile with whatever that particular technique is. So I cut a couple of strips of stuff from my alumni magazine, and I was playing around with some accordion folds with this one. On another one, I was playing around with some cutting, so I fringed it over on the side like this. I could, of course, leave it like this if I wanted to, but since we're thinking about texture and this is a 3D class, I might think of ways that I can make this a little bit more three-dimensional. These, I cut them at an angle, so maybe it's a little bit spikier, like this. Another cool thing you can do with paper, and because this is magazine paper, it may not work as well. Let's try it on the edge instead of with that. You can curl it. So with just a little bit of pressure from the palm of my hand over the edge of my countertop, you can curl your paper too. Sometimes you can just do that with a pencil. You can wrap it around a pencil too. So, or a pen or a marker or whatever. And you can come up with curl textures as well. So that is another potential texture. Again, I want you to cover the entire square that you cut. It needs to be at least 3 inches by 3 inches. But then you're going to have to solve the problem of attaching it onto your square. Again, I really recommend using glue sticks. This is my preferred method, but if you guys only have tape at home, if you only have liquid glue at home, if you only have duct tape at home, that will be just fine. Again, liquid glue can get a little bit too much too fast. So you would attach it on, cover up the entire thing. So you will pick 4 of whatever you can think of to come up with a different texture. The reason we're doing this week is we're trying to prepare you guys for our larger paper project next week, where you're going to have to include a bunch of different textures in it. As for your paper and cardboard attaching, you guys will have 4 of these as well. And I want you to just play around with it before you have something like a big project that you're trying to assemble and engineer. There's a bunch of different ways that you can attach paper, and I've got a bunch of different examples here too. Different ways that I've played around with it this evening. So I've got different types of cardboard. If you guys are getting as many packages delivered right now as we are, you probably have some extra boxes. This was a part of an Amazon box that we had. This was a part of a baby shower card that I had. And then this is my dog's medication box that I cut up. So you don't have to get fancy with it. You're welcome to recycle stuff if you would like to. But a couple of ways that you can play around with attaching cardboard, particularly because it's a little bit firmer. I've got 2 rectangles of cardboard here, and this is something called a gusset. So this is a little triangle that I've cut at a 90-degree angle, so it's got that nice sharp right angle right there. And I have a hot glue gun at home. Not all of you guys will, but this is one way that you can attach pieces together. This is going to help it be a little bit more structurally sound, especially if you're working with thicker cardboard or if you're working on a larger piece. You can, of course, tape this on as well. The gusset is just there to kind of like reinforce it. You can also use tape. This is kind of not quite cardstocky thickness paper, but a little bit thicker paper. You can also use tape to create some L braces. And the way that I tape this is I have my 2 rectangles of paper, and I literally just put it over the edge of my countertop to get that nice sharp 90-degree angle. I put the tape over it, I flipped it back over, and I added some tape on the inside too. And now this is perfectly structurally sound. So that's nice. Slots are another way that you can attach 2 pieces of cardboard together. So I just have these little rectangles right here. I cut out a little slot and a little slot. This is where you would be able to attach them like this. If you needed it to be more reinforced after this, you could of course add extra tape to it if you wanted to, or hot glue if you wanted to. But this is another way that you can attach pieces of cardboard together. You can play around with that. It's a little bit trickier to attach curved pieces together. So one way that you can tackle that is if you cut just little indentations, you can bend these up like so, and you'll create flat surfaces on the bottom. And then you can tape or glue like so, if you would like to, just like this. Tape or glue it down if you would like to. Another one that is really handy to do is creating a slot. I had an example of that, but maybe I don't. Whatever, I'll make a new one for you. So I'm just gonna snip a little slot in this piece of cardboard, and then I'm gonna measure about how big this is. A little bit bigger. And the little tab that I'm going to make, I can slide, it might need to be just a little bit smaller. I can slide this in like this, and then I'll just bend that little tab down so it can stand up like this. So some pretty low-tech ways to attach some pieces of paper and cardboard. Your primary goal this week is to play around with it. The photographs that you guys need to take for this, you just need to include your 4 texture tiles. You can do a photograph of just all 4 of those all together if you want to, and then you can do a separate photograph of all of your different attachment techniques. You can, of course, do more than these. If you just want to play around with it a little bit more, that's fine. The more options you have, the easier next week's project is going to be. So, with that, all of the specific instructions and some photographic examples are on this week's assignment. I hope you guys have a great week. Remember, office hours are on Wednesdays for you guys, 9:30 and 10:30, 4th period and 5th period respectively. All right, bye guys.